Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Crypto, Coffee and Lo-Fi. So, we did end up seeing that big bullish continuation that I was expecting over the last few days. And the whole market has pretty much followed. We saw a leg up on pretty much every altcoin. And all of my my plans for the previous episode and pretty much all the coins that I covered are, for the most part, following the plan. So I'm just going to rehash all of those coins that I went over, plus go over ICP and CRV as well. I'm going to try to run through things as quickly as possible, making sure that I'm not being too long-winded. So if you're new here, I'm just using the same pattern to find accumulation and distribution. I'm using that same pattern to find support, resistance. And then once I kind of have my bias and I have an idea of where I think price is going to go, I then use that same pattern at support or resistance as an entry trigger. So the same pattern is essentially just a head and shoulders. So I'll wait for a sweep of a high. Then I look for a break below the low that is responsible for taking that high. Once we return, I then look for the same pattern to form again. So for Bitcoin, we are reaching into higher time frame resistance right here. You can see we're retesting the resistance and continuing to sell off. But as I explained in the previous episode, we were getting some daily closes above. We were getting some daily closes above this level and into resistance. So I was expecting just a bullish continuation after a sweep, which is exactly what we got. Now, moving forward, I think we're not going to stop here. So I'm just going to remove all of these levels. I think the next step for price is to reach up above this high right here. Now, once we take this high, hopefully we don't then see distribution. But I'm thinking that's going to be the most obvious scenario as we see a temporary top and a move up towards 55k, followed then by some distribution before we then see a retrace. Now, the most obvious place to then look for longs if we do get that retrace after taking this high would be right here. Not setting blind limits, but waiting for the reaccumulation, waiting for the same pattern to occur. So if you want to learn more about this, just pick up the strategy. There's a link in the description below. So I'll go through everything in detail there. So Bitcoin, today, tomorrow, expecting another leg up. You might be able to see some intraday opportunities, just looking for the same pattern on the 5 to 15 minute time frame, taking out this high. It's pretty simple. ETH, a similar kind of picture, except I'm looking at this high for a temporary top to form. Once we do take that high, I'm thinking that we then see some temporary retracement back into either now these levels of accumulation or possibly even these levels right here. So in the previous episode, I was saying I was looking for a sweep of a low followed by some reaccumulation on the lower time frames. Pretty much followed the plan, but unfortunately I didn't see any clean long entries. So that is one aspect of the strategy. I guess it is quite difficult. It's that you will see price run in the direction that you thought it was going to run, and you see it run all the way to your targets. But until you actually see the entry trigger, then the statistics say or prove that you really shouldn't be entering the trade. So this kind of hurt. I just had to watch this over the last few days just continue up, and I think it will continue up all the way to our target. Now going into London in a few hours, looking for some levels to potentially see the entry trigger. So we have a sweep of this low right here, breaking above the high that's responsible for taking that low. And then as we retest, we form the same pattern again here. So we have a sweep of this low right here, which was then followed by a break in structure or a break above the high that's responsible for taking that low. So ideally, when we see a retest of these patterns, we would like it to be around a session open. Because that's when we should see an increase in volatility. So the idea is to see the retest right before the session open, see the accumulation, and then price lets go, and then we see the volatility. So hopefully we get to see a retest of this level. Sol, not much has changed. Still expecting a retrace into this zone. Once we do get the retrace, looking for some accumulation. Now, if my target, let's say, is all-time highs above $220, I don't want to be sitting on the 5 and 15 minute time frame looking for the entry trigger and looking for accumulation. The $220 target would be a H4 or even a daily target, meaning that I shouldn't really be going below the H1 to find the accumulation. So looking here sometime today around London, hopefully it's in line with what Bitcoin and ETH is doing. If we can get the retest followed by some reaccumulation, then we should be good for a long into all-time highs. We're not really seeing any strong signs of distribution here, but what we wouldn't want to see if we were to see a bearish scenario would be a break below then just distribution. And then obviously we would need to break all of these lows and then continue to distribute, but I don't think that's very likely. I think what's going to happen is that we just retest the previous resistance turn support where we then see reaccumulation. So that's what I'm looking for on Sol. XTZ, pretty much a similar picture. I was looking for a sweep of these lows and a return into this range before we see another leg up. Now, so we've taken out all of these equal lows here. There's not really any setup for me until we break some structure and break this high. And even then, once we break the higher, we'll still then need to see the reaccumulation for my entry trigger. So keeping an eye on this one. We could still obviously fall deeper inside of this range. A previous level of accumulation is right here. So we have sweep of a low, breaking above a high. We still need to test the raid candle there. So if we fall off around London, hopefully again in line with Bitcoin and Ethereum, should be able to see a move up. No obvious distribution here. However, we do have this whole leg that still needs to be tested. So just trying to stay patient with that one. Luna. So I think this is good for a long here. If you go back and watch the previous episode, I was looking for a break above this high, followed by some reaccumulation, which we got. And I caught a perfect long entry into about 49, which is where I said I was going to take my profit. So this, I was thinking that price would take 49 and then drop off back into the range, which is exactly what we've seen. So it's played out pretty much perfectly. Sweeping out a low, breaking above the high. Here's the entry trigger. Taking profit at 49 and then just watching it fall from there. We are breaking out of this diagonal trend line and we are just retesting these previous levels of accumulation here. So I think we might be good for a long. Just really still I need my entry trigger. So swept that low, breaking above this high. We can get some manipulation then below these lower time frame lows. So some manipulation below here, something like this, and then some reaccumulation. That would be a solid entry trigger. If we don't get the reaccumulation and if this low gets invalidated, then this is the next level to watch. But then if that level fails, then thinking we head a little bit lower into about $38. Perp. So this one, I did get taken out of my long position, but we are just retesting a previous level of accumulation still. So we haven't really, even though I got stopped out of my position, it doesn't mean that my bullish bias and my long bias is invalidated. It just means now that I'm going to have to look for new levels and new entry triggers. So still having my eyes set on perp. We'll see what happens there. ICP. So yeah. Alright, so this is one of the more solid looking higher time frame charts. So we swept out a low here, breaking above a high. I would have liked these equal lows to be swept, but we didn't quite get that. So reaching into the support, sweeping out these equal lows, breaking above this high, and then reaccumulating here on the lower time frame so we can see that. So I am just using the same pattern over and over and over again. I think it's really important to look at your trading strategy and see how you can refine it, and with that refinement you'll be able to be more consistent. Without the consistency in your trading strategy, you're never going to be able to achieve consistent results. If you're just switching from strategy to strategy, you've got 20 different indicators, 30 different indicators on your chart. You win a trade, how do you know what indicator was telling you to take that trade? And when you lose a trade, it's the same thing. So back to this, sweeping out these lows, breaking above a high, returning, seeing the same pattern form again. Now just because we didn't get the retest of these levels, when we then saw the next bullish broken base, it doesn't necessarily mean that we'll move all the way back here before the next leg up. So I think ICP is a strong buy within this range here, just targeting this high. We go over to the 15-minute. So we swept out all of these equal lows and then broke structure yesterday. So now if we are going to continue up, I would like to see some kind of manipulation here. So something like this, followed by another break above. Really looking for this low to hold. If the low does break, then I would assume that price comes down all the way to $50. Hopefully then we see reaccumulation at this level, but I think a quick dip here, followed by a break in structure, should be good for a long. CRV, here's a solid example of trading the easy and easy out on the lower time frame. So this is all posted in the Discord, and once the trade is finished, I'll post that proof on Twitter. So there's no hindsight. So we swept out these equal lows right here, breaking above this high, and then as we return to the level of support, so once we sweep the lows and then we break the structure, this is now what I like to call like a true support level. So it's not enough to enter the trade on its own, but then once we see the return to the support level, if buyers then show their hands and we do see some signs of reaccumulation, then we can look to get long, especially on a lower time frame reaction. So you can see this is a broken base on the hourly. My entry was on the M5 or the M1. So you can trade lower time frame reactions to higher time frame levels, just keeping in mind that your target needs to be relative to the time frame of your entry trigger. So don't go trying to trade a 5-minute reaction to a H4 level with a H4 target. You're just going to get chopped up. So I wouldn't be surprised if price comes down and takes me out. So that's why I'm looking to get out of the trade early. Just one more quick high, I'm thinking. So here's the example. We swept out this low, breaking above a high right here, and then as we return, we take out this low here, breaking above the high, and then we retest the candle that swept the low pretty much perfectly. So my entry was a little bit above that. Entered at market, so I got slipped a little bit, but that's fine. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it for today's episode. So if you're interested in the strategy or the way that I'm trading here, click the link in the description below, pick up a copy. It helps out a lot. Obviously, these videos that I make are free. I enjoy doing it, but the more support I get, so the more likes, the more comments, and the more views, everybody sharing the videos, leaving some support below, or even the people picking up the strategy. It just, it helps out. I don't mind helping. All right, so that's it for tomorrow's episode. We are on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday now, so I won't be on until Friday. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.